In this video, I'm going to take you through the top 5 most commonly asked questions at Ingles interviews that people have had, and also show you how to plan brilliant answers that will get you through the most common questions. So let's start with the number 1 question, which is when can you work at Ingles? They're going to be super interested in knowing your availability, and if you don't answer this question well or answer it badly, it is going to blow the interview and you're not going to get the job. So let's look at how you actually go about this. So there's 4 fundamental things that you want to demonstrate with your answer to this question. Firstly, you want to show flexibility. They will hire someone with more flexibility over someone more restrictive. They need to get their store staffed, and if you're going to contribute to achieving that, they're going to be more interested in hiring you. The next thing you want to do is make sure you mention reliability. They're obviously looking for people that are reliable because that's a key part of their business, getting the stores staffed to appropriate levels and maintaining customer service. The next thing is you want to show that you've got a can-do attitude. So if they ask you about specific times, you want to, as far as you possibly can, volunteer for those times and be really constructive and helpful in the way that you work with them. Then the last thing you need to do is show commitment. The way that people completely mess up this question and ruin the whole interview is they instantly start saying, when they're asked this question, about the times that you can't work. For example, they'll say, I've got other commitments on a Wednesday, so I don't want to work on a Wednesday, and therefore you just give them a reason not to hire you. The more times you list that you can't work, the less chance you're going to get the job. So you want to be focusing on showing as much flexibility as you possibly can and not listing all the times that you can't do. That's how you answer the question wrong. The next thing you need to do is to try and think about the things that they would like to hear. So great phrases that you can use in answer to this question is to say that you're able to work all opening hours. If that's the case, that's probably the best answer you could give. Work around business needs so that you can be flexible and work at the times where they really need people working in the store. If you're happy to work evenings and weekends, not all the time, but sometimes, you can say that that's something that you're open to. If you're open to work overtime, you may never be given any overtime, but if you would be willing to do extra hours for more pay, you can express that interest now. This is a good time to show your openness to take on extra. The next thing you want to be prepared for is to discuss transport. Sometimes they ask questions like, do you have reliable transport, or how are you going to get here? That's an important question for them, checking whether you're going to be there on time consistently. So you ought to think about how you're actually going to get to the store and explain that in your interview in a way that makes it convincing that you're going to be there on time. So have that one ready just in case. The next one you want to be prepared for is, what can you tell me about Ingles Markets? Obviously, if you go to your interview without having researched the company, you are going to fail and you're not going to get the job. It's very important that you do your research. I'm going to help you with that research in this section. And if you are asked directly how much you know about the company or what you know about the company, you want to have an answer prepared. And the way that you answer that question is you start with the obvious facts, then you want to show that you know the company well, and then you want to drop in 1 or 2 facts that suggest that you've done some really great research and you know more than other people applying for the job, because that's a good step to impress them. By going to the interview with really great research, that's going to massively help you get the job, because most candidates are not going to do as much research. So let's look at the key facts that you want to know about the company. So the first one is, you're obviously going to say that they're a grocery retailer. That is their business. Start with the obvious things. They were founded by Robert P. Ingle. He's the original creator of the company. And the company traces its main roots back to 1963, when the first store was opened. It focused originally on serving what we call underserved communities, so rural communities and places where there wasn't a supermarket that was meeting their needs, and that's where they moved into. Then you can start talking about the fact that they were founded in Black Mountain, North Carolina. That's where the very first store was. They also own a business called Milk Co. Inc., which is a massive milk processing business doing millions and millions and millions of containers of milk, and that supports their store's business. They are listed on the NASDAQ, so they're on the stock market. They're big enough to be publicly traded. They are different from a lot of other grocery retailers in that they own the majority of their stores. They actually own the real estate, which means they're not renting it from private companies or investors. They are actually owning their own stores, and that helps them be very competitive. They have central distribution, so they have one main distribution center, and they have all of their stores around that distribution center, so they can send out all their products very cheaply and have a very efficient logistics operation. They are very big on wellness. They have, for example, their own dietitian that goes out and does talks about wellness, and they have a real focus on improving people's diet and healthy eating, and that's something that the company values greatly. They have a lot of product lines that are named after one of the Ingles family members, Laura Lynn, and you will see that brand. She was one of the daughters. It is not just grocery retail. They also have pharmacy services and gas stations attached to the stores. They run a weekly ad. So if you go on their website, you can see an advert every week with the deals that are available. You want to know about their current loyalty program at the minute. That's the Advantage card. You want to know how that works so that you can talk about that in your interview and seem very knowledgeable. And they are also big on community giving. They have various programs where they support schools and the local community by giving back some of their profits to good causes. And you want to research that and make sure you know what your store is doing for that and what the company is doing to support their community, and talk really enthusiastically about that. The next thing you absolutely want to do to help prepare is you can read Ingles Markets Inc. Form 10K. That's basically their annual report. Type that exact thing into Google and you will get more information about the company than you would ever imagine. And if you've just read that and mentioned that you've read that, that is showing you've done great research. They've also got on their website a company profile that goes into more detail about the history that I've got here and how their company actually works. So definitely read that and be prepared to talk about that in your interview. So that is how you absolutely ace that question. Let's move on to a really, really important question, which is, why do you want to join Ingles Markets? Unsurprisingly, when you apply for a job, the company tends to ask, why do you actually want to work here? And if you don't have a good answer to this, maybe they should employ someone else. You want to show that you're passionate and really interested in actually getting this job. So let's look at what you need to get into your answer. So the first thing you want to think about is, why would you enjoy working at Ingles? Talk about the things that you would really like about the job to show them that you're actually really interested in working here. And if you enjoy your job, you're going to be better at it. So think about whether you really enjoy working with customers. Think about if you've worked in previous roles in the past, so you can link it to previous experience. And you can say that you really enjoyed working in other grocery stores, or any customer-facing role where you're working with customers is a good one to talk about. And that helps show that you're interested in these sort of jobs because you've got experience and you're coming back to do more of this. You could talk about career opportunities with Ingles. Do you see yourself working your way up within the store? Are you looking to start at the entry level, but with training and upskilling, you're looking to, over time, earn extra responsibilities and progress as a long-term career with the company? This is a family-run business, and you believe that there is good opportunities to grow with the company. You could talk about your Ingles brand affinity. Is this somewhere you've shopped before? Do you usually shop here? Why do you like this store? Talk about your experiences as a customer. And whatever you do, make sure you're enthusiastic in your answer. So when you're planning out your answer, I would recommend that you bullet point some of the key things you're going to say about why you actually want to work here, and be enthusiastic when you're saying that. On the flip side, there's certain things that people do say in interviews that go down really, really badly. So here are some things that you must avoid. So don't say that you live right next to Ingles, or talk about how it's a very convenient place to get to or very near where you are, because that suggests that perhaps your passion for working in this particular type of company, or the fact you'll be really good at it, isn't very important. The main thing is that it's convenient for you, which the company's not terribly interested in. Do not ever give the impression that this is just a temporary job until you get something better. If you talk about this as in, I'm looking to do this job because I need to get a job, but I'm looking at other things, or you give even the slightest hint that this is just a 5-minute thing and you want to move on, or you just say, well, I need to earn some money, or I need to have an income, or you talk about why you need this job for financial reasons to you, that doesn't really matter to the company. The store manager that's interviewing you isn't really interested in that. His job or her job is to make sure the company is making money, not that you're making money. And really, anything that's not relevant to Ingles Markets, don't put in your answer. And I'll give you some inspiration of certain things that you could talk about. So you could talk about experience as an Ingles customer, progression, long-term career, if there's something you could see yourself doing for a very long time and working your way up in the company. If you really enjoy working with customers, you got experience working in other roles with customer service and you enjoy that, talk about that. You could also say, if you know someone that works for the company and that you've spoken to them and they've been really enthusiastic and given you lots of reasons why you should apply to the job at Ingles and encourage you to do it, you can share in their passion and enthusiasm for the company. So this is definitely one that you don't want to make up on the day. Plan out an answer and deliver that when they ask you. The next one is they could ask you a question like, tell me about yourself, or how would you describe yourself? And you want to have a good answer planned and prepared for this. The reason that it's so important that you plan for this question is because it's an opportunity that most people waste. This is your chance to have some freedom to actually explain why you're such a great hire and convince them that you should be the person that they hire. And for this answer, there's a few things that you want to talk about. You want to start by talking about your experience. Then you want to talk about your personal qualities, what you are like and how your personal qualities are going to make you great at the job. And then mention your interest in the role. Why have you chosen this particular company to apply to rather than perhaps their competitors? So with the experience, start by thinking about all the relevant jobs you've had in the past. What jobs have you done and how are those jobs going to make you really good at this job? Any customer service experience at all you want to emphasize. If you worked in a restaurant, for example, that is going to make a great link to this role because you've worked with customers, you've dealt with customer complaints, you have restocked products when they've ran out, you have worked in a team. All these things are great experience. Talk about those. If you've got any qualifications at all, now is a great time to mention it. Some people applying for the job might not have any qualifications. So if you have good and relevant qualifications, make sure you mention those when you're describing yourself. Qualities. If you're highly reliable, this is a good time to mention it. Talk about your track record for reliability. If you are someone who is always professional, even when you're under pressure, so our customer's really angry and complaining, but you remain calm and maintain professionalism and represent the brand well, this is the time to mention it. And you can say that you're a team player. So if you're good at working in teams and enjoy working in teams, now is the time to mention it. Then think about your interest in the role. You say that you're passionate about good customer service and that you like providing a great in-store experience for customers and helping people in store. You could also talk about your desire to work for a family business. Ingles is on the stock market, but it is very, very much still a family business. It's controlled by the family, and a lot of the very senior people are family members. And then you can also talk about just the simple fact that you love working in retail, that you love working with retailers, and that kind of job environment is something that really interests you. So plan out an answer for this question and make sure you get those 3 key ideas and can talk confidently about each of these. And then you'll be really successful and won't miss this great opportunity to convince them that you're a great hire. The next one we want to think about is strengths and weaknesses. So you could be asked about what's your greatest strength, what's your greatest weakness. So let's look at strengths and then look at weaknesses. So when you're asked about your strengths, it has to be genuine. Ideally, you want to support your strength with evidence. So if you've got a previous job where someone's written your reference, you've got some sort of qualification, or you've got an example of a time where you used this strength, that would be a really great way to enhance your answer. The next thing you want to do is when you're choosing a strength to pick, it has to be relevant to Ingles Markets. If it's not relevant, it's not going to be very powerful. And I'll give you some inspiration of some things that you can say. And the way that you structure your answer is very, very simple. You say, I would say that one of my greatest strengths is, say what it is. When you're using the phrase one of my greatest, it implies that you've got more than one strength and you're struggling to choose what your biggest strength is. Then you want to say this strength will support Ingles' business because link it to their business. Why will hiring someone with that strength make their business run better? That's what they want to hear. And some inspiration is customer care. If you're great at dealing with people, you're very calm, very patient. These are good things to mention. If you're applying for a slightly more senior role, that might be, team leader, manager type role. You want to talk about team building, that you are someone that builds good, strong teams and inspires confidence in others. If you've got great attention to detail and you set very high standards. So for example, if you see a spill, you're going to be the first person to deal with that. You see things that are messy on a shelf, you want to get in there and tidy it up to make sure the store environment is perfect and you have high standards. Now is a great time to talk about that. The next one you could be asked about is your greatest weakness, and some people blow their whole interview here. If you pick the wrong weakness, it can really count against you. So this is a question to survive. So the first thing you want to do is make sure it's a real weakness. If you can't say an actual weakness and have to go to a fake weakness, that shows that you don't really know yourself very well and you're not aware of your strengths and weaknesses. And if you say you have no weaknesses, they don't believe you and they won't take you seriously. So people will say things like, I'm way too much of a perfectionist. Well, that's not really a weakness. It's trying to be a strength, something they want, but then talking about it as a weakness is not convincing and it just annoys people. Then you want to think about, what are you doing to fix it? What are you going to do to get over this weakness? How are you going to get better? And then the most important thing is it must be something that's totally irrelevant to Ingles' job. So you've got probably lots of weaknesses, but they're things that you're never, ever going to use in your job. They're real weaknesses, but Ingles is not going to mark you down for this, and it's totally irrelevant to their business. So for example, if you were to say something like, my body odor is so offensive that customers regularly complain, you are not going to get the job. No one would ever hire anyone with that weakness, ever. So don't say it. And if that is your weakness, sort it, please. So these are not good weaknesses to talk about. The good weaknesses to talk about are ones I'm going to share with you in a second. And the way that you answer it when you've chose your weakness is to say that a weakness I am aware of is, emphasize that you're very aware of this, then talk more about what you're doing than what your weakness is and why it's so crippling is going to ruin your ability to do the job. Then when you're doing it, talk lots and lots and lots about things that you could do to improve it and how the company's going to work with you and support you to develop into an even better employee. So some weaknesses you might talk about is spelling. You are unlikely in an entry-level job at Ingles ever to have to write long letters. You're not going to be writing things for the company's website, or if you were, somebody else is going to be checking it, so it doesn't matter. If you're not applying for a management role, then you can talk about delegation, that you maybe take on everything yourself and you're not very good at giving other people work to do, and that could be one of your weaknesses. If you're not in management, that's not something you're probably going to have to do anyway, so it doesn't matter. Public speaking, if you're applying for an entry-level role, you're probably not going to be giving speeches to hundreds of people. That's not expected in the role, so if you're bad at it, nobody cares. Saying no, so you might be someone that gets asked to do something and you find it very hard to say, no, I can't do that because I'm already doing this. And then you can easily talk about what you're going to do. Or if maths isn't your strongest point and the idea of doing algebra is horrible and you couldn't imagine doing complicated maths, then talk about that because you're not going to have to do that. If you're on the checkout, it's going to do it for you. You don't really have to use pen and paper and do complex addition and multiplication. It's irrelevant. Maybe that's a good weakness to talk about. And it's a weakness many people have and it won't harm you at all. So that's how you answer the strengths and weaknesses. And before we finish, one thing that I need to show you is the questions that you could ask them at the end of your interview. So here is some great questions that you could ask at the end. If you have no questions at the end of the interview, that goes down like a lead balloon. It's an absolutely terrible idea. So make sure you've planned and memorized 3 to 4 good questions to ask them to show that you've done your research and you're really interested. So first question you could ask is, you could say, I'm very interested in this role with Ingles, and then ask about the next steps in the hiring process. Then you could ask them what you could do now to be really well prepared for starting in the job. And they'll tell you the things that you could do to be effective on day one. You might want to ask about the team that you're going to be working with and show that you have an interest in your coworkers. You could ask them what a really great hire looks like at Ingles and what they are looking for in a good hire. And then you can compare that with your skills and experience and make a case as to why you're a really strong hire. The last one is that you want to invent one in the interview. So listen to what they're saying. If at any point in the interview you wonder about something, maybe just remember that and ask it at the end of the interview. So if this video was helpful to you, please like and subscribe below. Comment in the comment section with the questions that they asked you so other people can see your experience. That would be really helpful, and if you get the job as well. And finally, thank you very much for watching.